All right, so today we have the AOC AG493UCX. It is a 49-inch super ultra wide monitor. It is basically dual QHD, so 5120 by 1440p at 120 hertz, a BA panel. It says 1 millisecond. I've seen some reviews say it's not quite 1 millisecond, but we'll see. As you can tell, I can't even record it right. Like, I have to have my stuff way back here. You can see it's bigger than my table that I normally record videos on. All right, up here, it says do not open from this side on the top. So I'm not gonna open it from this side. You have to flip it upside down. So now I gotta rearrange everything just so I can flip it. What's in the box? All right, so you can see on the box, there are some instructions about how to open it and take it out of the box. It's gonna be difficult. This is not a one-person job. It's a two-person job. And luckily for me, I have the worst assistant in the world. I ordered mine from Amazon. And it was shipped fairly quickly. And it was delivered at like 6 a.m. I wasn't even awake yet. I woke up and started brushing my teeth and checked my phone, and it said my monitor had already been delivered. I really don't know how I'm gonna do this. There's a little color and calibration. So basically it's supposedly each monitor should be tested, I believe. Inside here is the little box. Oh, over there is instructions, I see. It's very odd, there's instructions here, but there's also different instructions on the other side. So here, it tells you to open it and basically pull the insides out with this little tape guy. This little, not tape, it's like hard plastic, or fairly thick plastic straps. So let me do that. I gotta cut the camera down to do that. All right, so there we are. It was one hernia later, and we got it out of the box. Here is the stand, also well packaged. Styrofoam's a big pain to mess with, but it's clearly well packaged. There's this stuff on here, you can see right there. So you gotta take this guy, stick him up in there. Unfortunately, it's not a tool-free design. There are these little clip guys here, but it doesn't just snap in like some other monitors do. On these little feet here, there is some padding. I was worried I might scratch my desk up. It's a shockingly tiny little pad. There's a bigger one on the back here, and this is the back leg of the 3-prong design. All right, and this guy does go down. You can adjust the height of this thing. Of course, I don't think it snaps into place. Yeah, you still gotta screw it in. So this box came with it. In here are your 4 screws, your AOC remote control, which is nice. Power cable, 3-prong of course, and then a bunch of cables. Just a straight up USB-C, a USB upstream port, HDMI, and display port of course. Some keyhole batteries for the remote. Everyone knows keyhole is the best brand of battery.
A new era for power. Keyhole batteries for a better lifetime.
Set this aside. You get a screwdriver. You find a little iFixit kit screwdriver. And there are only 4 screws here, so I would say don't lose them. They all appear to be the same size. All right, so now I screwed that on. I was gonna say, while I was looking, I always watch videos on stuff before I buy it, of course. And I was disappointed when I saw that this was not a toolless design because it's so nice and they kind of just clip in there. And then when I opened it, I was like, well, I was being a baby. There's no big deal. And then I had to screw those 4 screws in, and that sucked because they didn't go in smoothly. I was worried about stripping the screw. So don't like that. Now again, I shouldn't have to do it again. That should be the end of it. But either way, I don't like it. It is on there firmly, but I don't like it. So, all right, so I'm gonna lift the monitor up. The world's worst assistant is gonna help move the out of the way. Woo! That is heavy. Heavy. A lot of breath. Thing's heavy. You can't be a little baby. You're gonna lift that up. My friend Tony won one of these, but he's, you know, all my friends are losers. Not strong enough to lift on his own. And we don't live in the same state, so I can't help him. So, too bad for my friend Tony. As you can tell, don't put this over your head. Don't put it on babies. All right, so generally, you know, this channel focuses on tech for the most part. I don't like getting too political, but I will say, 512, we are also against killing babies. So AOC, 512, both against killing babies. So I apologize if I offended you. All right, so let's unsheath the beast. All right, so right off the bat, height of the actual screen, 14.5 with the bottom bezel, just shy of 14. Vertical screen real estate. Horizontal, just shy of 47 inches. So of course it's 49-inch monitor, that's diagonal. And yeah, we do hit that 49, but just straight horizontal with the curve puts you at about 47 inches, which is pretty big. The stand feet are 27 inches wide. And it's hard to measure this from the back of the foot to the front of the feet is about 13 inches. Back of the foot to the monitor is about 8 inches. And the monitor goes all the way down. That's as low as it goes. So that puts you at about almost 4 inches off the bottom of the desk. And the top of the screen would be about 18 inches. Put them all the way up. Bottom of the screen is right at 8 inches. And say 22.5 top of the screen. So one of my biggest concerns, I currently have a 34-inch monitor, and I was worried that this would be less vertical real estate than my 34-inch. I wanted to put them side by side, but this desk isn't big enough. So vertical real estate's 14.5 here, counting bottom bezel. So yeah, it's basically the same as my 34-inch Philips. There's a lot more bottom bezel on my 34 Philips. Let me measure this. So you're 13.5-ish tall. It's almost the exact same height as my Philips 34-inch for this 49-inch super ultra wide, which is a little disappointing. I was hoping it was going to be taller, but maybe that's fine because I might have a camera up here and it was much taller than it'd be too high. So we got this super cool sticker here, which I'm going to take off. Don't care about that. It's 1800R curve. So obviously if you want a 49-inch monitor, you need a big desk. This desk that's on is 30 inches deep and it's pushed pretty far to the back, but that's pretty good. That'd be perfectly fine for a 30-inch deep desk. Now wide, this desk is, it says 47.5, so it's 48 inches, yeah. So this is a 48-inch wide desk. And you can see it hangs off the edge of the desk a little bit. So I would say it's gonna be your minimum that you want. My desk I'm gonna put it on permanently is a 60-inch desk, and I'll probably upgrade to 72-inch desk. So again, this is the AOC Gaming AGON model, which means they're 4-year warranty, which is pretty stellar. That was one of the major selling points for me. I can see the monitor does tilt. You can bend it forward, backwards, and then I guess a little bit this way. I don't know if it really is bending or if it's just not so strong. Let's get this power cord out. All right, so on this side over here, we have a power button, 2 arrow buttons, a down button, and I don't know what the other kind of button. There's a big nub right here, which should be the, I guess, the IR sensor for the remote. So there's a physical on-off switch in the back. So let's turn that on. And now press the button. Now we got a little tiny light on the side. Look at that. Woo! It is crazy seeing how big this thing is. All right, I'm gonna take these top tier keyhole batteries
For a better lifetime.
Also, the remote is nicely protected as well. Good size remote. Well, there's nothing plugged in, so it's not gonna have any signal, I guess. So this just slip off cover, put your top tier keyhole batteries in there. Got the power button again. Yeah, it works. It's hard to tell, probably you can't see that's name. I don't know what this little button does. Like a little, maybe input. Oh, there it is. We got some display action going. If this thing works well, I will probably never buy another monitor without a remote because I hate pushing those little buttons on things. All right, so that's not coming up right now, but that's fine. I'm gonna take my Dell XPS 9710 and plug it in with the, I might use a Thunderbolt 4 cable, but you should be able to use the USB-C that came with it, but I already have a Thunderbolt 4, so I'm gonna use that. I don't believe it's Thunderbolt, I believe it is USB-C, but either way, they are physically the same plug. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Get from behind look at that. You can't do. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Oh, man, that is crazy looking. You can see that there. That's the Dell screen there, looking pretty good. Display settings. It's 38 by 40. Let's go to 51. Well, let's go ahead and hit this guy. There we go. So now if we hit this little button, the little menu comes up. You can see that there. And we'll back out of it. So that's pretty cool. So this button brings up the menu there, which is nice. It moves nice and fluid. So I saw complaints about this on-screen display. Oh, that's the input changing button, that's right. So now we're on USB-C, which is what we want to be on. This game is game mode. Looks pretty nice. Hit OK, just brings that up as well. This brings it up, or OK brings it up. That's the brightness, which is nice. And then this would be the volume, which is also nice. Okay, so I love the remote. And then I assume power turns it right off. And we'll see if it turns it back on. It does turn it. I think you gotta give it a little more firm press to turn it back on, but it seems to work. So it's loud. Here's an idea of the 34-inch. in front of the 49-inch. So you can see a little bit about how much different they are. It's a pretty big difference, but it's also not a huge difference, if that makes any sense. There you go. I'll try to scoot all the way over to one side so you can see you get a little bit extra monitor. So you can see it's about the same size monitor, it's just a little bit longer. So it's gonna be pretty good, I think. All right, as you can tell, I got a lot going on here.
So, I got a lot going on.
When you first get a 49-inch monitor, I know what your first thought is. How will a Nintendo Switch look on this bad boy? Let's check it out. Also, long-term viewers of the channel, there's gonna be a lot of little Easter eggs in here, right? This is my Switch with the coolest Joy-Cons in the world. This is the Switch dock that I made for the kit, so it's basically the guts of a real Switch dock, but in this more portable form factor. Put that on there. So let's turn the monitor on. I'm gonna say it multiple times in this video, but having a remote control for your monitor is the best thing ever. All right, and then we'll use the remote control to change the input to HDMI. So I have the Switch here docked on my little makeshift dock. Okay, now it's working. I just gotta point to the thing. So the receiver for the remote is all the way in that far corner, so you can't point straight. Sometimes that doesn't work. Pointing over to the side does work. There we go. That's what you see. That's a good look right there, as you can tell. All right, so that one didn't work. There's another blast from the past. This was a PDP controller, which I liked. And it's obviously held up well, and it's wired, so we shouldn't have any problems. All right, so this is gonna look like crap if you hit this button, then go to the settings and go to extra. There is a image ratio. You can change that, and let's go 1:1. That's not gonna look very good, I'm sure. Well, it doesn't look bad actually. I mean, it's small, of course. Let's try a little different. Let's go 4:3. It's also not terrible, but not what we're looking for. So if we go 21.5 inch at 16 bits, so that's pretty neat. I don't know if you can see that, but we'll go through that in a little bit, but it's not look good at all, does it? Sorry, so I guess I need to change it to, so it's 5.4, it looks all right, but I don't know, I thought it was. So you can see right off the bat, it's kind of complicated to use this with something, but that's not built for this kind of monitor. So I might do this one because it looks all right. You can see, let's go to Stick Fight real quick. That's the volume from the game itself. You can adjust the volume here, which is nice. If you want, you can even put the frame counter. So the games that will turn on the frame counter. Yep, got 60 frames a second right there. The audio is really not terrible. It actually doesn't look that bad on here in this ratio. So it does look good. So we're gonna check out Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. So it does look good. We're getting 60 frames a second, which is nice. Now this is the, obviously dock mode. But we're still on the 1:1 ratio, and we'll change it to 16:9 shortly. But 1:1's looking pretty good. I mean, this is supposed to be 27 inches. It's 16:9. It looks awful. And this is part of the problem with the monitor. Spoiler alert, I don't love this monitor. I will say, with a monitor like this, you're gonna want a mouse like the Logitech MX Master 3 because it has this horizontal scroll wheel. So when you got a lot of real estate like that, you're gonna want that wheel to get action to it. I just swapped to my Dell XPS 9710, and the image ratio stays on the same one even if you change inputs, which is also annoying. You think the inputs would remember which ones they are. So let me go back up to wide. There we go. All right, so here it is with the Dell XPS 9710 through the DisplayPort. So when I was unboxing it, I plugged it in directly through the USB-C cable and through HDMI, and neither one would hit 5120 by 1440p. But when you use DisplayPort, it will. So HDMI and the Thunderbolt USB-C will not hit 5120 by 1440p, but the DisplayPort will. This is the Dell XPS 9710 with a 3060 going through the Dell Thunderbolt dock. Spoiler alert, I'm returning this monitor. 49 inches is just not for me. And that's not to say the monitor's bad, but this is not a review monitor. This is something I bought with my own money for my own personal / business use. Now obviously I'm a super famous YouTuber, but I do also have a real job. And for the most part, I have everything set up at one desk. I switch between my personal desktop, the Dell XPS 8950, my work laptop, ThinkPad T490S, and I have the personal laptop, of course, the Dell XPS 9710, and the LG Gram 17. But I generally would have used this monitor with the Dell XPS 8950 desktop and my work laptop. I'm just using the 9710 currently for the ease of recording this without having to move my whole desktop. In regards of using it as a single desk for multiple devices, the built-in KVM was a big selling point to me. For both work and personal use, I have the Logitech Brio and the Shure MB51 USB microphone. My previous monitor, the Philips 34.6B1C Ultrawide, also had a built-in KVM. and it makes for a quality experience if you're frequently switching between devices like I do. I did see some complaints about the integrated KVM in the reviews of this monitor when I was researching it prior to purchasing it, but my limited experience, it had no issues whatsoever. It worked perfect every time I would switch it. As soon as I switched the input, the integrated KVM would immediately switch my devices over automatically. The way I was doing it, I was using the USB-C plugged directly into my Thunderbolt work laptop, and I had the display port to my desktop, and I had the USB upstream going to my desktop, and then I had the USB peripherals plugged into the monitor itself, and that worked flawlessly for me. My previous experience with the integrated KVM was the Philips 34-inch I previously mentioned. It would work about 90% of the time, but those times when it didn't work correctly, it'd be super annoying and you would have to change inputs multiple times or power cycle the monitor to get it fixed. I never had any of those issues with the AOC. On the subject of changing inputs, prior to this AOC, I've never had a monitor that came with the remote control. After using this for about a week, I hope every monitor that I ever buy comes with a remote. It is the best. Especially on a monitor this large, it's awesome just to change the input or settings with the remote and not have to fiddle with the buttons or joystick on the monitor. One of the common complaints I saw about this monitor prior to purchasing it was the OSD. The on-screen display here, this little guy in the corner, which I really don't mind. It doesn't really seem bad to me, but having the remote control makes it so much easier to maneuver through the settings. On the AOC website, there are 2 or 3 different programs you can download to control the monitor. One was consistently quarantined by malware bites every time I downloaded it. I don't actually think it was malware, but it's odd that it get immediately snatched up. And there are 2 different programs you can download that should control the monitor. Both are heinous looking applications and neither seem to work great for me. So I just uninstalled them both and stuck the remote. But again, having the remote makes it so simple. All right, so let's look at the settings. First, we have the game setup, which is game mode, so you can change that. You have to push over on the remote, essentially. You have to push this arrow here. So you have first-person shooter mode, RTS, which I don't know what that is, racing, and then Gamer 1, Gamer 2, and 3 are where you can just kind of preset things that you want. I think I use it on racing most of the time, maybe. And then if you go, see, so those are all grayed out, but then if you go to Gamer 1, you can then change the shadow control, game color, overdrive, weak, medium, strong. I think I heard that medium was the best. Low input lag's not available. It is available somewhere else. You can turn the frame counter on, which I did a minute ago. So you can do, let's do right down so you can see. So you can see a little 60 there. There we are. So we're at 120 with the Dell XPS 9710 laptop going through DisplayPort through the dock, of course. And then of course you can change the volume. Well, yeah, I can do that here with the volume. You can also change the brightness, which is nice. And the ambient sensor can be very nice if it works correctly. So I also have the Alienware 38-inch monitor, and it has one, but it's still new to me, so I'm still working out the kinks. But if it doesn't work correctly, then you got to fiddle with the settings constantly anyhow. So luminous, you can change the contrast, brightness, eco mode, gamma. Image setup, so you have HDR mode, picture by picture. We'll go that in just a second. Color setup, obviously just changing colors. That's pretty clear. And then on-screen display setup, you can change the language, the timeout, like how long this little guy goes away for. DP capability, I guess that's 1.2 or 1.4. For display port, B position, transparent, break reminder. I guess you can set a reminder, say if you're on the game too long or some shit like that. USB, that's where you change your USB selection. So you can make it so it's the USB-C only or the USB upstream only. So if your auto is not working good, you can just have it like that. But for me, like I said, it was working perfectly fine. And then our last one here is the extra. So that's where you can change your input select. Image ratio is where we change the different sizes of the display. And there you can see the settings that's currently at 5120 1440p and 120 hertz, which is nice. So let's take a look at the picture by picture mode. So let's turn this on. So now we have picture by picture. And see, here's where it gets kind of annoying. So the switch looks good like this. Now this is with the HDMI, and this is with, even though that's a Thunderbolt, that's going to my display Dell dock. So for as far as the monitor is concerned, this side's display port and this side's HDMI. Yeah, so if you're gonna use Switch or anything like a game console, it's gonna look best in picture by picture mode. And so that looks great. Now the problem is trying to get this side on the display port to look proper. I really don't know how to fix it. I mean, the best I can do is the 3840 by 1080p, but still it looks weird, right? You see, you can't move that line any, as far as I'm aware. So maybe there's a way to change it, but for now, I can't seem to figure out a way to do it. So let's swap the two. Yeah, so now my Switch is over here, and then this is obviously my game. So the Switch I can play, just like this, just fine. This looks great for the Switch. So if you're gonna play the Switch or any console, obviously use this picture by picture mode. The original thought process, right, when I got this device, I thought, hey, I could have my work on this side and my personal on this side, and I could, you know, mess with my personal computer while I'm at work and things like that. But based on this, it's not going to work very well. All right, so that's enough switch. Take the switch out of the equation for now. There is also an input through the USB-C port. So let's go ahead. Now it's just picture by picture. There's only one input, so it's duplicating both displays. It's pretty fun. So I'm gonna plug the USB-C into my LG Gram 17. Now it's important to note, this is not Thunderbolt. It is USB-C. So right off the bat, let's go ahead and change the display settings, and let's make you. So here's a major problem, right? This is a problem with the Gram where it thinks there's two monitors, but there's not. But it only makes it go to 1080p. If you're using that USB-C, it's only gonna do 1080p. So now I can swap it. So now the Dell is on the USB-C port, and the Gram is through the display port. So display settings. I believe the native resolution of this monitor is 1080p. It's a 5120 by 1440p monitor, but if you're using anything besides display port, it always goes to 1080p, and that's a problem. So this is the Dell XPS 9710. It was previously running at 5120 1440p through the display port, but when I swapped it to USB-C, it won't. It only does 1080p. And the problem is 1080p looks like crap at 49 inches. So when you're using it for two devices with the built-in KVM, therein lies the problem here, right? So when I use my work device on here, which is just a ThinkPad T490S with no built-in graphics card, it looked like crap. I would switch back to my work device on my personal desktop, and it would look great. Here's another problem. I'm currently on the Gram, and it tells me I can only do 1080p. Even when I open the monitor up. The Gram does not have a dedicated graphics card, and it works fine with 120 by 1440p through DisplayPort. When we put it on USB-C, it does not work. I mean, it works, but only 1080p. And 1080p looks like crap. All right, so currently we're on the Dell XPS 9710, going through Thunderbolt to the Dell WD-19 dock, DisplayPort to the monitor. So I'll change my display settings to 120 Hertz. Now, game settings, and we will make it the frame counter come on. It says 120 right here. So my current game of choice is Rogue Company. Gonna use a little Xbox controller wireless. This one is pretty cool looking. I like it. So the whole time I'm using this, we're at 120 Hertz. We're gonna see a couple things here. We'll see how well a laptop 3060 can push a game on a 49-inch monitor. And again, this is a Dell XPS 9710. It has the GTX 3060 laptop version, of course. And it's being plugged in to the Dell dock, so it's getting a full 130 watts of power, and it's going through DisplayPort. So I'll go to settings. So there's two major problems with this monitor for me with this game, which is the game I play the most. So we can change it to 5120 1440p. All ultra should work just fine. Up here, we're at 120 Hertz. Gonna play Strikeout. So the fans are kicking on, but that's not out of the norm for the Dell XPS 97. Again, this is more of a content creator laptop than a gaming laptop, but it does have a 3060, so it can game just fine. I played this game on multiple monitors with this laptop, and it should work just fine. This is my first time playing on the 49-inch with this one, but I do have gigabit Ethernet through the Eero Pro 6 router, so bandwidth shouldn't be a problem. Horsepower shouldn't be a problem. Well, I should say that. I normally play on the Dell XPS 8950 that has a 3090, so I know horsepower is not a problem there. 3060, we'll see how horsepower works on this guy. This is interesting. It is sitting 120. When I was playing on the 3090, it was hitting 100, which made no sense. I could switch to Fortnite, which is a heavier game, and it would hit 120, but for some reason on 3090, maybe the game updated. Maybe it was a game problem. We'll see. So just a little laggy. Yeah, it's pretty glitchy at this. Again, I don't know if that's the monitor or what. So let's change the game. Oh, man, this could be. Let's change the game settings. Let's change. Oh, game mode is off. So let's change it to FPS mode. See how it looks. So we are consistently at 120, which is pretty good. I said in my past, I don't know if there was an update to the game or what, but for some reason the other day when I was playing, I could only hit 100 FPS. It doesn't seem like a fluid 120. That could be the laptop again. All right, so we are sticking to 120, which is fine. But let's go to settings. You see, it drops me to 1080p. Even when I change it to 5120 40p, and I'll hit apply, and it still shows 120. The 120 never dips. So the fan is coming on by the Dell XPS 9710, but that's nothing major. That does happen. We are hitting consistent 120. Like I said, I was annoyed with this game in general. I like the game, but when I was playing on my Dell XPS 8950 desktop with a 12th Gen i9, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and a 3090, it was hitting 100. I tried changing all the settings around. It would not do it. So I don't know why it works fine on a laptop, but not the desktop, which is more powerful. But either way, it is nice to see that it's working. Now the problem with it dipping to 1080p is annoying. I mean, I think this is powerful enough to do it, 3060, maybe it's not, but I know the 3090 should be powerful enough to push this kind of game at 5120 by 1450. It did work on Fortnite, which is a heavier game. So let's look at the settings again, see if it's still on 1440p. So really, it seems to be pretty smooth now. So I don't know what that first game was a little janky. Now I'm sitting back pretty far now because I am trying to, obviously record a video. And when I'm sitting on the desk, everyone loves to say it's immersive because you're up against it, right? But this angle does look pretty good. I'll have to say that. I'm pretty far back, like here, I'm over here. All right, so I played the game. I didn't do super great, but I did get the final kill. It's pretty good. And the settings, and see it drop back to 1080p. It is keeping the 120 consistent, which is nice because previously it wasn't. But it constantly dips back to 1080p. And that's because I think this monitor is a native 1080p. I could be wrong. But it seems odd to me that, especially like even when I do this and go to display settings and I go to change it, it always says 1080p is recommended. And I assume that's just because it is, it shows that on all my devices, right? So even the Dell XPS and the A950 with the 3090, 12K99, it still tells me 3080 is recommended, but clearly that one can push it. So again, standing back this far, it looks fine. Sitting up on it at 5120 by 1440p, it looks good as well. I mean, it certainly looks great. And it is nice having two documents side by side. So like, here's a little insight into how I do things, right? So whenever I am editing, so I have an editor, it's not very good. It's pretty terrible. So here's how I sort of do things, right? I go side by side. Working like this is pretty great. So basically, I'll watch the video I recorded. I'll go through and make notes, and I'll say, at 2 minutes, cut this part out, or add this picture, or some B-roll, something like that, right? So for this, it works great. And just like in a work environment, it also works great. So let's say this is a Excel spreadsheet and this is a Word document. Let's say something like that work a lot of times. I have to look at a spreadsheet and I'll have to make notes on Microsoft OneNote. And so then, of course, you can drag it, of course, and you can make it a bigger on one side versus the other. In Windows 11, there's built-in tools, or you can put in Power Toys, a bunch of stuff. But just in general, you can do it like this. And this is why the Logitech mouse is good for this monitor, since it's so big. So the spreadsheet, right, I can just use the little side wheel to scroll across. Like, assume you even went full screen, so you can do a little horizontal scroll with the thumb wheel, which is nice. So for using giant spreadsheets, this monitor is awesome, right? And for doing things side by side, also awesome. You do have to turn your head to look at each side. You can't just sit and see the whole thing out of your periffs. So it's much better than 34-inch in that regard. But I did buy a 38-inch monitor, and I think that's the sweet spot for me. You may be different. You may like turn your head constantly. I don't. So that is a great use case for it. And of course, if you want to do 3 things, you could do that as well. And then of course, stuff like, say you go to a website, Droid Lifestyle, when you go full screen, everything's gonna be in the middle, which is still fine. Obviously, if you watch a YouTube video. So if you go theater mode, or if you go full screen, right, you're not covering up that full screen, right? You're just getting there. And which is fine, because you'll be sitting right here and you'll be looking at it. But if you have something like a 34 or 38-inch with 21:9 ratio, it will fill the whole screen up and it looks pretty good, or it fills up most of the screen. So again, it's important to note this is not Thunderbolt for the USB-C. It will power your device, and it worked fine to power my ThinkPad for work. That was no problem. Again, it's worth noting the switching back and forth looks fine. I do think the monitor itself looks cool. I like the stand. I was worried about these big wonky legs. It is pretty stable. It moves up and down fluidly, no problem at all. I do like the swivel action. That's pretty good. And I like how it can tilt like this. I like this. And I find it pretty good. One horrendous part about this, if you were trying to share your screen at work and you're trying to share your screen, like on a Zoom call, it's awful. Because on their screen it looks horrible. So what you have to do then is make 2 windows, right? You have to make 2 windows essentially, and then just share one window instead of sharing your full screen, which really probably is better practice anyhow. But it just gets annoying if you're going to show a bunch of stuff. Like if you're going to stop, show a Word document, then show Excel spreadsheet, you have to stop sharing, reshare, and all that, as opposed to just having your screen up and switching between your things. If you're going to do a PowerPoint presentation, it's also horrendous. That's going to be the same for any monitor, I guess, but without having 2 monitors, it's hard to present in PowerPoint because it fills up the whole monitor, right? But if you're trying to share a PowerPoint presentation on a Zoom call, it will also squish up the whole screen. So you could, in theory, then change it to picture-by-picture mode and do it potentially. But again, for me, it's just not there. I like it, but it's a lot of money. I paid $1,000 for it, and I'm going to return it. But the aesthetics of the monitor, I think, looks pretty cool. I like the stand. I don't mind the little Agon logo there. Again, there's nothing better than having a remote for a monitor, but overall, it's just not for me. It works perfectly fine. I had no qualms with it, other than if it's too wide for me, right? I mean, that's my qualms with it. But as far as the monitor, the display looks great. So that's a good thing, right? You know, there's a lot of good things about it. The remote control, the picture quality, when it's doing the 5120 by 1440p looks great. If you hit 120 hertz, it looks fine. The number of inputs is awesome. There's 2 display ports, 2 HDMI, and several USB options, and a USB-C for display option as well. So all that's great, but overall, again, just not for me. But you should buy it and use my Amazon link so I get that money. My personal use, I'm returning this. I bought the Alienware 38-inch monitor and the LG 38-inch monitor, but I ended up liking the Alienware enough that I'm just going to return the LG without even opening it, and I'm returning this guy. So that's my input. Let me know any comments. I'm not going to test anything else, but you can ask me a question about it, and I'll see if I can recall from memory. All right, thanks.